Channing here. I'm the director of the Maison Française, and I'd like to welcome all of you this evening. This is a very impressive turnout. We were a little bit concerned about being able to fit everyone into the room because we had so many RSVPs, and we were hoping the last-minute competition from the World Series might take the edge off. But I'm glad to see there are so many people who are faithful to Marcel Proust in this room with us tonight, and would like to welcome you. I'd like to first thank our co-sponsors of tonight's event. The French-American Foundation, President Antoine is here, and with a special thanks to Joanna Kohler, who actually took the initiative to propose this event and to propose that we co-sponsor it together, and worked very hard with me to make that happen. And also to thank the Proust Society of America, which is a program of the Center for Fiction. We are very grateful to French Cultural Services and to our corporate sponsors and individual members for the very important support they give to our activities and allow us to sponsor events like the one this evening at the Maison Française. If you are interested, we have brochures and membership brochures on the table on the way out, so please help yourself. There's also some information on our other co-sponsors. And I'd like especially to thank tonight's speakers for being here with us for this conversation on the work of Marcel Proust. They are known to all of you in this audience and don't need much of an introduction, so I'll be very brief. Antoine Compagnon is the Blanche W. Knopf Professor of French and Comparative Literature in the Department of French here at Columbia. He's also a professor at the Collège de France and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. What you may not know about Antoine Compagnon is that he was a graduate of the École Polytechnique and Pont et Chaussée before becoming a student, and then a professor of literature at Columbia and at the Sorbonne. Antoine Compagnon has published a number of books, too numerous to mention here. I'll just mention a couple of them. They include Nous, Michel de Montaigne, La Troisième République des Lettres, and Le Démon de la Théorie. His work on Proust includes critical editions of Du Côté de Chez Swann and Sodomie de Mort, and Proust entre les deux siècles. He has a new book just off the press with Gallimard entitled Le cas Bernard Failly, Du Collège de France à l'indignité nationale. And I have a copy here that you can have a look at the reception afterwards. Antoine Compagnon has received a number of prizes and honors, again, too numerous to mention. I'll just mention a few. He received the Prix Pierre-Georges Castex de l'Académie des Sciences Morales et Politiques and the Prix La Critique de l'Académie Française, and he was named by the French president a member of the High Council on Education and High Council on Science and Technology. He also, just to give you an indication of how widely admired he is, not only in the United States but in France, he was asked last week to give the inaugural lecture at a 50-year anniversary celebrating the creation of the Ministère de la Culture with all of the former ministers of culture present. So, our other guest this evening is Adam Gopnik. Adam is an author and essayist. He's been writing for The New Yorker since 1986. He has garnered 3 National Magazine Awards for essays and for criticism, and the George Polk Award for magazine reporting. Adam Gopnik lived and wrote in Paris for 5 years. He says that he moved there in search of a sentimental re-education, and he also wanted to give his newborn son and later his daughter their first magical years in Paris. And he has some wonderful descriptions of taking his son and later his daughter to the Luxembourg Gardens, among other places. Many of his best writings from his Paris years were published in Paris to the Moon. If you haven't read this book, please go out immediately tomorrow and buy it. It's really a wonderful read. He's a brilliant and incisive observer of France and captures its smaller details and larger truths in prose that's a pure pleasure to read. Adam Gopnik is an avid reader in general and an avid reader of Proust in particular, and he has written the introduction to Proust correspondence in English translation. He's also the author of Through the Children's Gate, A Home in New York, and most recently, Angels and Ages, a short book about Darwin, Lincoln, and modern life. So please enjoy the conversation, which will go for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time for questions, and then stay to join us for a reception upstairs afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Antoine. Thank you all for coming. Antoine, I wasn't aware you were at Pont et Chaussée on the Rue du Pré-aux-Clercs. Yes, exactly.
Oh, we lived dead opposite there.
Yeah, the school is no longer there. Of course, it was kicked out to the suburbs.
Exactly, but they used to have wild parties once a month, and they would send out an announcement, a wild party is about to happen. Watch yourself. Thank you all for coming on this very rainy and stormy night. Your presence, I think, is very much part of this conversation, because one of the things that I think interests us is why Proust, why Marcel Proust. The conversation you're going to see tonight is a classic collision between a completely naive and amateur American and a fully knowledgeable and wise Frenchman on this subject, someone who knows against someone who yearns for knowledge. But one of the things that I thought where we might begin, Antoine, is that I think, someone once said that if you had asked an art lover in 1889 who are the greatest living artists in France, the thing you could be sure of is that they would not say Gauguin, Van Gogh, and Cézanne. That would have been beyond their scope, even if you were hugely knowledgeable. And in a similar way, I wonder if 100 years ago, in 1909, would there have been anyone in France who would have said, the one writer who will attract people, crowds in New York and San Francisco and Tokyo and Berlin in the year 2009 will be that guy, Marcel Proust. Could anyone have seen it, and why did it happen?
So let me first say that I won't speak as a philologist tonight. I did some critical editions of Proust, but we will try to remain at the level of amateur reading of Proust and what we like.
At an American level, as we would.
I think it should be defended. The innocent reading should be defended. Is the most important. Yes. How Proust did become a classic. In fact, we can say that in the 1930s he was not at all. He went through a period of purgatory, as most writers at the time of Surrealism, at the time of Malraux, Céline, they all hated Proust, or Sartre, if you remember passages in Qu'est-ce que la littérature? Sartre said that now we had gotten rid of Proust. I mean, of course, what is ambiguous is that they all had to mention him. So they just put him down, but still they had to count with Proust. Even Céline, there are passages in Voyage au bout de la nuit and elsewhere where he's very violent, very negative about Proust, but still he feels that they feel that they should destroy him. So it's a way of paying homage.
The discontent with Proust in that period was because he was seen as too narrowly focused on a small social world?
For political, moral reasons. In the 1920s and 30s, Proust was considered to lack any ethical dimension, and that for that reason he shouldn't be considered such an important writer. But nevertheless, he was, let's say, immediately considered as a classic. For instance, by Jacques Rivière, who was the editor of the NRF. Of course, the NRF had refused Proust. Gide and Schlumberger had refused Proust, but when Swann's Way was published in 1913 by Grasset,
but with the subvention from Proust.
Proust was paying for it. Immediately, Jacques Rivière was the young secretary of the NRF, realized the mistake. The letter that Jacques Rivière wrote to Proust in early 1914, he was the first eminent reader, the first great reader of Proust. And a number of people realized as early as that, the first publication, the first month of publication, that this was a major novel, that it was a major, let's say, breakthrough with what, for a number of years, the French readers had been expecting something. Perhaps they always wait. We are waiting for the great French writer today also. But at that point, after Zola, who were the main writers? Anatole France, Pierre Loti, Maurice Barrès.
Gide himself had not yet been recognized as a major writer.
Gide was recognized with Les Caves du Vatican, 1914, and Les Faux Monnayeurs, 1926. So it's Gide was struggling with the possibility of writing a novel. So there was an expectation of something new. And we cannot forget that Proust's book was published in 1913, which is a magical year for French modernism. It's everything exploded in 1913 in music, in painting, in poetry.
It's the year of synthetic cubism. It's Apollinaire's last